just going to give a quick welcome to everyone who is joined or joining at the moment. We've got a couple of minutes. Just wanted to acknowledge everybody that we see you guys all coming in, and we will get started in a couple of minutes. I should probably turn my notifications off.
Time to stand up.
No, I have the other day I was on a webinar and my phone started ringing on my computer. It was really confusing. All right, everybody who's on the call, just give us another minute and we'll get started. All right, it is 4 o'clock, so I think we can get started. Hang on, let me just find my cheat sheet of notes. So welcome everybody. This is the weekly webinar series regarding to the SBA and the various changes and things that are happening within the SBA and the loans and the PPP, etc. My name's Claire. I am a SCORE mentor and I also help facilitate some of the webinars that we put out. Chris is with us today. He handles this weekly. He does this weekly. He's our resident expert on the SBA and the PPP loans, etc. So I'm going to hand over to him in just a minute. But just a couple of quick things. Number one, for those of you who are regular attendees to this, we are migrating systems. We're still going to be having Zoom webinars every week, but we're going to have you register each week now for the webinar, and there will be a new registration link that is going to be put out. I'll actually attach next week's to the email that goes out after this this webinar today, just so you guys have it. But if you try and log in using this Zoom webinar that we've had the same one for the past few weeks, it won't be active next week, so just keep an eye out. Sorry for the confusion, but we have had to migrate to a new system within SCORE, so that's going to impact how we do the registrations. No, just do the Q&A function for us. If you have questions, please ask them. We're going to try to get everyone's questions answered, but please do keep them in the Q&A function and not the chat section, because we don't really moderate the chat section or watch the chat section. So just try and put them in the Q&A. We will try to get to everything. I think that's it. All right, I'm going to hand over to Chris and he can get started on this week's updates.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our next weekly installment in our update on the SBA programs and the kind of managing through the disaster times here. A couple of things have happened that we're going to go through today, and also I have updated our Excel worksheet with the easy form incorporated into it, and I'm going to go through that a little bit today because I think most people are actually going to be able to go and use that form. And that could be more important now with a couple of changes that have happened. First, Claire, if you don't mind, we have kind of a question left over from last time.
Yep.
And so we can dispose of that. And that is, what is a UCC, Leon? Will it ask for a list? And I said no the last time, but things changed quickly. Yes, it does, but not on that side. UCC is a universal commercial code, and it's really a lien that is placed on the assets of an entity, and it's based on chronological order, so whoever is first. But then you can also have specifics, and specifics are kind of overtake general, and especially when it comes to very specific things. And for example, when it comes to vehicles and those kind of things, that is actually specific to the VIN numbers. And it is really saying that in a statewide system, saying that I, as a creditor, I have dibs on your assets, so you can't sell them or actually put new credit and debt on those assets unless I say, okay. That's really, in short, what a UCC lien does. I'm not sure what it means by the list, but yes, typical company will have a list of UCC liens listed in the state. You can go on and just kind of Google UCC liens in New Jersey, and you will get to the place where you can actually go in. It might cost you $1 or something to actually get them printed, kind of view the details of it. Okay, so now let's go to today's fun. There is some new guidance on the PPP forgiveness, and also PPP applications are ending. 6/30 is the last date anybody can actually get a loan number for PPP. And depending on the lender and all those things, that could mean that its real application deadline could be 6/28 or 6/29. Although it's a lot faster these days, so it could be the last day. I wouldn't give up if you're kind of there in that date range, because it's become a lot faster than what it used to be. Also, what I'm hearing a lot is that EIDLs are getting approved and people are getting them. It did break loose within the last week, a lot. A lot of people are getting it, and in most cases I hear more money than the PPP. And we're going to get into that a little bit as we go. So here they are getting approved, and as of now, the last application date for EIDLs is 12/31, or as long as the money lasts. And at the pace, may or may not, but there is money now, and it has been big bucks. 30-year loan, 3.75% interest, no prepayment penalties. And I've spoken to a lot of people. Should I take it? Shouldn't I take it? And be aware that it is going to be there in their credit reports. If it's over 200,000, it will be required a personal guarantee of all owners. And over 25,000, it will be collateralized. So there again, it depends on how much it is. If you're getting 26,000, just take the 25. To not have it collateralized, you don't have to worry about UCC liens and those kind of things. And the PPP, as I said, it's available to 6/30/20. There is money there still. And as the puppy and the cat says, friends, tell a friend to PPP. It is a good deal. I don't really see downsides to it with the 24 weeks available. basically everything should be forgiven. And for those who don't know, most do now, basically it's based on 2.5 times the average payroll cost from last year. Or if you're a sole proprietor or partner, then it is your net income from last year on Schedule C divided by 12 times 2.5. So it's the same type of thing. And there's no personal guarantees, no collateral, doesn't come back to you unless you kind of done something stupid on it. Couple of things. If you haven't done the application yet, this has come up several times actually, on the EIDL and on the PPP. There is a question pertaining to bankruptcies. In the PPP, the question is, are you presently involved in a bankruptcy? And the EIDL is asking, have you ever been? So if you do both, don't get confused and ask, if you had a bankruptcy 5 years ago and you say yes on EIDL and it was discharged and all that kind of stuff, you should be okay with EIDL. However, if you don't look at the question closely on the PPP application, where it says, are you currently involved? And you say yes, that will disqualify you. So be careful with that. And it's hard to kind of fix. Sole proprietor, it has been established that basically it's once you're at 24 weeks, it is 100% forgiven. And that is by the nature of how it works. And you get the easy form application. And because you couldn't get a higher loan that is being forgiven, it will all be forgiven if you're a sole proprietor or partner. So that's a good thing. That has been established now. So that's an excellent part of it. There's some others that not so good. We get to that. Another thing that just happened last night is that before we had to choose, if we were 465, we had to choose either 8 weeks or 24 weeks. And if you're after 65, it was 24 weeks. Now they actually said, we will be able to apply for forgiveness as soon as we spent the money to be forgiven. So then a question was obviously asked, how does that work with the easy form when it says you go to 1231 and you do reduction calculations based on covered period? And actually it's being said that no, you can then do the calculations up to the date of the application for forgiveness. So this is good news for those of you who are well into it now, have actually incurred all the costs that you can get it all forgiven, and you want to get the loan off the books. If you're in a position that you may be looking to do something else or your banker doesn't like it, etc., you can now do the forgiveness application and start the process to get it off your books. The process is interesting and it's unknown how good the banks are going to be. After you do the PPP application, the bank has 60 days to make up its mind whether they approve that application or not. And the bank has all the incentive in the world to approve that application. They want to have that done because they don't want to deal with it anymore. Then it goes to the SBA, and they can do a couple of things there. They can either approve it, they can deny it, they can partially approve it, or they can do either one of those and tell SBA to review it, please. So that, and then SBA has 30 days to do that. Hopefully the banks and SBA will be a lot swifter, especially on smaller amounts and easy stuff. that it goes in and right through in a couple of days, and then it comes off the books. Again, quickly recapping how that works now. Choice of 24 weeks or 8 weeks. As of last night, you actually have another choice. Once you are there and say that you are now up to the forgiven amount, you can now apply. Truly, I don't know that the banks actually have their stuff together to get it done. We have the application, we can fill out the application. I don't know that the banks yet have the uploading capabilities. They better hurry up now with this, because their people are going to come after them now. And again, payroll cost is at least 60% of the forgiveness. There's no cliff, so it's proportional if it's less. Other eligible expenses up to 66% of that payroll. If you got your loan number on 6/5 or after, it's a 5-year payback. If it was before, it's between 2 and 5 depending on the bank. However, I keep saying this, with up to 24 weeks to incur the cost to get forgiven, people, you should get forgiven. You shouldn't pay a cent on this. And deferment is now at 10 months after covered period. So what that means is that after your covered period has ended, you have 10 months to ask for the forgiveness. Very important. If you blow the 10 months, you blow it. You don't get forgiven. There is no automatic. You have to apply. Now, that is not easy to see. So we're going to send this out, and I think I'm going to do it differently. Hold on, folks. Hold on. I'm going to do it this way. No, I'm shuttling between my screens here. So folks, even old guys like me, I have multiple screens. We're modern.
Like you're commanding a spaceship.
Yes. So here is the more unpleasant aspects of what just happened in the last couple of days. And that was defined what SBA's perception of what owner employees are. And basically it turns out that they define owner employees not only as over 10% owners, but basically everybody, sole proprietor, independent contractor, LLCs, S-corps, partnerships, now have been defined as owner employees. And what you can see here, this typically would come into effect for a little bit larger organization, but you can see here how it affects what is included in the forgivable amount. The group health expenses, not for owners until you get to C Corp. Group health expense for employees, it applies for everybody, except of course if you're sole proprietor. Retirement plan expenses, not for partnership, for S Corps, yes, and for C Corps, but go down here and look at the little two stars here. It's included in that 2.5 months worth of 2019 contributions. And so we have to think through that, and I'm going to come back to these things. The bigger thing here for us, for most people, would be that now for 24 weeks, the compensation for anybody who is now defined as an owner employee is $20,000. So previously, when you were looking at my forgiveness because I'm paying myself $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 a year, whatever that is, I could get up to $46,000 forgiven. Not so anymore. If you're deemed to be an owner employee, that number is 20,833 or 20.833% of your 2019 compensation. That's a big change. However, I am going to quickly go into something else here, and that is the next one. Wait a minute, hold on. I think I actually have it over here. So, there we go. Can you see it? No?
Yeah, we can see it.
No, I have you haven't been able to see my Excel sheet at all?
No, just the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. So, really?
Yeah. Did you, when you shared your screen, did you share the,
Oh, I have to do that.
yeah, you probably.
I'm not as technically advanced as I thought I was. Huh?
You probably just shared the PowerPoint when you shared the.
All right, let's see here. You sharing. Now let's not take the time with it. I'm going to go back to this then. Oops. Move that over again. So you didn't see my Excel sheet, and we got to figure that out for the next Excel sheet I have. So here, then we had this one where I went through and talked about where for owner employees that you are now capped for 24 weeks at 20,833 or the 20.8% of your 2019 compensation. And that's a big change from the 46,000 that was included before, especially people who run organizations that have maybe the person itself and a couple of employees, those kind of things. That makes a big difference because the loan was based on something different. However, it is not as bad, I think, as it sounds, because really when you do your calculations and you think about 24 weeks versus how the loan was generated. So let's presume that somebody got a $50,000 loan. That loan was based on payroll costs for 10 weeks. So that was based on a 5,000 average payroll per week. So now we are into a forgiveness calculation that has to do with now 60% at least, right, of 50,000 to be, that's 30,000 to be spread over 24 weeks. That means that on the average, you have $1,250 per week, or 25% of the original to get to that number. And other, you have 20,000, that's $833. In total, you need to have normal $2,100 of expenses per week when you got a $50,000 loan. I think that most of us, almost everybody, should be able to get to that number. With the 24 weeks, it's a completely different calculation. Folks, we should be getting there. Especially people are starting to get up and running, et cetera, et cetera. So the need for other employees here is $382 a week. We should be able to get there. So which means that really all this, regardless of this last change, the big thing is do the application, get the report to show expenses. Because folks, without doing the application, without doing the backup, you're not going to get the forgiveness. So that has to be done. Claire, should we do a few questions?
Yeah, we have a few questions. So, okay, first one is, can you, I'm not going to do these in order to the presentation. I'm just going to go from top to bottom. So can you take the EIDL loan for less than what has been approved, and how would you do that?
Yes, you can. And there are two ways to do it. And the first one, you have to know it to do it the first way. There is a place in the process when you get the loan, when they said, you have been approved for $50,000. And then they ask, do you want that amount or do you want a different amount? If you don't want $40,000, if you only want 25, so that you don't have to collateralize the loan, then you say $25,000 there. If you were not on top of your feet at that point, which most of us at one point were not, then it gets through. Once you said, I want that amount, you cannot change it. It's impossible. What you can do is you can call them and ask about it and make sure you get the right instructions. But what I was told was that you can send back, write a check, send it back, the difference to them that you don't want, and a letter that has your personal information, your company's information, and the loan number and what you want to do. That way, they will only record the amount that you kept. And you have until the time period where they say they're going to actually file the lien, which I think was, I don't want to say it, I can't remember, it was a couple of months, but I'm not sure, but I think that's what it was. You should call and ask. Okay. Is the collateral for EIDL personal or business assets? For EIDL, if you don't have personal guarantees, then it's all business assets. Unless you're sole proprietor, then there is no real difference between the assets. But if you're any other entity where there's a difference between you personally and business entity, it's the business entity's assets. Should I just go further?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay, I can do it. I see them here too.
Okay, sorry.
Is 10,000 of the EIDL automatically considered a grant and not subject to being repaid? If that's what you got in the beginning, that was the advance amount that was just kind of dumped into your bank account, then that is the case. Then that is not subject to be repaid, and it is actually not included in the loan amount and in the paperwork that you sign for. It will be net that amount. So if we use PPP only 50% on guaranteed payments, will that amount be, what will that amount be forgiven? I'm presuming that the question is really, if we use 50% on forgivable expenses, that amount will be forgiven. Yes, provided that the non-payroll expenses are no more than 66% of the payroll expenses. So yes, it's proportional. I thought the EIDL loan was up to 10K. Is that not true? We don't know what the EIDL loan is up to. It is much higher than 10K. The 10K was the cap on the grant or advance portion, $1,000 per employee or up to 10 grand. The loan amount has tended to be considerably bigger than that. And we don't know what they're really basing them at. They look at what kind of a scope of operation you have in some way, and then they approve an amount for you. Can a sole proprietor apply for 100% forgiveness before the 24 weeks, or do we have to wait? That is a good question, and I was trying to figure that out today. And I think that you can. I also think that you have to do the math and make sure that you get to the amount, because here is, let's say that it was based on 100,000, which is the maximum, right? And so that is 20,833 for the time, and that is divided by 24. So that's $868 per week. I think we go about it the other way. The loan was based on 10 weeks, 2.5 times the monthly. So if we divided 20,833 by 10, that's 2,083. So I think that you could make an argument for that would be the case after 10 weeks. I would also say that talk to your lender about it, because this is going to be lender guided, just like the loan. The lenders are kind of out there on their own, making the rules on how they are going to do it with themselves. I got an amount much lower than I expected, and I would like more. Is there a way to ask for more or get a reasoning as to why I received a small amount? I'm assuming that this is for the EIDL, because on the PPP you actually asked for an amount, and I would say there is an 800 number to call. I would call them, and I think that I've heard that they do answer that question and that you can challenge it. I would do that. If your forgiveness application is rejected, do you get the chance to revise to reach 100%? Yes, you do, actually. You do get a chance to do that. Now, what would a reason be for a rejection? To be rejected, you do the application that's given. Now, I would say you need to go through the calculation, show the calculation, and show the backup. If you have the backup, the calculations are clear, there should not be a rejection. Especially the lenders are motivated to get this done. Should it be that anyway, let's say I make a mistake, they do machine reading, the machine reads it incorrectly. Yes, you can actually, after the bank has to tell you that they're partially rejecting, and there is a period of time where you can challenge that. So yes. We got the PPP loan. Where do we get the forgiveness report? I'm going to go through that today, and I'm going to jump into that right now. And we have talked about that a few times. So first, here is the instructions for the application, for the loan, for the forgiveness application, the easy form, in which you have to, if you can actually read through this and say that, yes, I will be able to actually check one of these boxes. Then we can do the easy application, and it's much easier. And here's the actual application. And Claire, when we send out the presentation, we can send these applications with, right? As well as the Excel sheet.
Yes, we can.
The worksheet. And here are the certifications that we have to go through and do for the easy application for forgiveness. So here, before I go into the actual spreadsheet, let's go through this. So there are, for the easy form, a couple of payroll periods that you have to get reports for, the whole period. That is the first quarter this year. It's your covered period, however long that ends up being, if you want to cut it earlier because you spent all the money. Last week of the covered period, the week of 1/1/20, the week of 2/15/20, the week of 12/31/20, or up till, we get into that, up till means if you have to justify. And also, if the box number 3 is to be checked, you're going to need to have revenues for a covered period versus same time last year. Practical, obviously, you want to do revenues that is actually fitting monthly. So those are what you need. Now, a challenge here, Claire. I need to have my spreadsheet here shown.
Is it, okay, so is it on the other monitor?
I'm pulling it down to the same monitor.
So if you click on your share screen button, it should give you a choice of all the...
I have to stop sharing first?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll go back and do a new screen share. And, oh, there it is. Let's see what happened. Hey, there we go. So now I'm going to try to do that. And there we go. We are in the quick reference guide here that is included in the spreadsheet, and that's what we went through before here. So the question that was posted before about how do we do the calculations? Well, we have two things that we need to do. We have talked about this before. Here's the expense tracker where you go down and for each week you do your gross payroll here, etc. Then I have incorporated the questions that is in the application for the easy form are here incorporated. So all of these are automatic except for the first one where there is a, and it may not work there. There is a actual little thing that you say yes or no, as well as over here whether the whole period is completed. But then the rest of these numbers, and this corresponds to the boxes on the instruction for the easy form. I know this is complicated, and once I feel that this is kind of settled, we'll have an walkthrough on this specifically. So the first box, if you are sole proprietor, then this is easy. Just check that box and you can do the easy form. If you're not, then you have to go through this. You have to say first, did I not have any wage reduction for any person more than 25%? That isn't pay, it's pay rate reduction. And what's done here is that we take the period, covered period, and we compare that to the first quarter. And here is the beauty of this, is that if you go in for the first quarter here, in the yellow field here, you get your payroll reports, and you get these aspects here that needs to be downloaded, you can skip that one probably there, but then download your payroll. Download your payroll in the worksheet for the covered period. Download the payroll in the 1/1 week for 1/1 here. And it's not as complicated as it seems like. All you do is actually download the payrolls, and the rest will take care of itself. We will have these calculations done for you because there's formula in here that picks them up, and we'll tell you here if there is a wage reduction. So now, if there is no wage reduction, then you also have to respond to B1 and B2 questions. It's in the language in the instructions, and it took me a while to kind of figure it out. Being old and slow, it takes a while. So then you look at what is measured, the number of employees for the last week of the covered period compared to the week of 1/1. Was there a reduction? No. Then you're good with that. And then was there a reduction in the average paid hours per week on those two periods? No, then you're good with that. What if it's yes? That's where 12/31/20 comes in, or up to. Because if you can produce a week in that period of time up to 12/31 where you have at least the same number of employees as you had a week of 1/20, and you had at least the same average hours worked as you had on 1/20, then you cure the deficiency. So here, anybody could pick a week and say, if I have a deficiency, I'm going to fix it this week. And then you fix it that week. And then in addition to that, you can also fix it by saying, I couldn't hire back. I couldn't actually get the hours and was not able to rehire. And that's a certification you do. And then the same thing, if somebody refused to get back to their other wage, they wanted a lower wage, then you can do that also. Then the next alternative, it's only one of these boxes in orange here that need to say yes. So again, did we have a wage reduction? So that was no. And then we have plus, was I not able to operate at the same business level as before the disaster? How they really intended to define before disaster, I don't know. I am defining it in covered period compared to same time last year. And most of us are going to say, be able to show, take our financial statements for, in most of my cases, I'm looking at May and June and July, August. That's going to be less than those months were last year. Or if that's April, May, and June, you kind of fit it in, how you fit it in. And that's less, then that's good. And then also, you have to say that at least of one of the governing bodies of HHS, Health and Human Services, CDC, Center for Disease Control, or your state OSHA, which are really the state regulations, if those interfered with your business, then you say that and you say how they interfered, and you should be good. That's how this form works. I know that was a lot to take in from this. But I'm going to send it out, and we're going to do a couple of more of these, and we're going to walk them through. So, because you don't want to do these calculations by hand. And if you're a CPA, you don't want to charge your clients for 30 hours to do calculations like this. The whole thing here now is also get your payroll reports. As we said here, okay, I have to do this again. Okay, share. There. I'm getting good at this. There we go. So you're going to need these payroll periods. You're not going to be able to get forgiveness without this information, unless you're a sole proprietor. Then it's assumed that you just paid yourself the same. So in any other case, if you have employees, you're going to need these payroll reports. Talk to your payroll people and your bookkeeper now. Get this done. You don't want to be the last in line. I can guarantee you that this fall, the bookkeepers and payroll people are going to go absolutely berserk. And they are trying to set this up, but now it's going to be more personal than it has been before. It's going to be much more customized than it has been before. So get with that. That's very important. This is what we just went through. And let's go back to questions then.
I have a question, which isn't one that's here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So if your loan gets forgiven, does that become taxable income?
No and yes. The forgiveness by law that was enacted in the CARES Act says that that is not taxable income.
Okay.
Well, that's part one to the answer. Part two is that, well, wait a minute. IRS regulations say that if you have forgiven money that then pertains to those costs, then those costs are also not tax deductible, which comes back to the same thing. My guess is that there are going to be some fancy tax lawyers and CPAs who are probably already rubbing their noodles about how this is going to work. There is also a chance that it will be that Congress acts to say that for loans under X amount, we are voiding that IRS rule. That could be possible, because I don't think that they first want to save a bunch of 4 million or some small companies, just then to tax them extra at the tail end. I think both of those might happen. And for bigger companies, I think that tax attorneys are hard at work to resolve this issue.
Okay.
So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. It's sort of, we don't know yet.
Yeah, it is. And it is tax deductible. It is not taxable, but the expenses that you refer to them are also not tax deductible.
Okay. Okay, so now some questions from that have been posted. I was sent an approval today for the EIDL and never received the grant of 10,000. So are you saying that what I take does not take into consideration that any of it is a grant?
I think that, yes, that is what I'm saying. And so because here is also, look at it, it's an SBA loan, but it's also a loan. There's paperwork, right? So there is a place in the paperwork where it says that you are borrowing $35,000. That means exactly what it says. It doesn't mean that you're borrowing 35,000 less 10,000. That's not how it works. When that paperwork comes around, any grant that was not part of that. That's already taken into consideration. So if you are being presented with you're going to get 40,000, 50,000, 35,000, then I haven't seen anything that did not then come back and say, this is what the paperwork says. I'm signing for this. I'm going to pay you off over 30 years. So no, the grant will not come out of that.
Okay, and then as an owner of a sole proprietor business, can I include an amount for personal salary as forgivable expense when previously I have taken no personal salary since expense equals income?
Well, I'm assuming that we are now talking about PPP loan, and you have a loan, so you must have done a Schedule C in which the net income was the basis for the loan. That is still the same basis. The underlying assumption is that as the sole proprietor, you are deemed to have paid yourself the same amount up to the cap. And then, but for sole proprietors, they go hand in hand. That net income is what your owner compensation is deemed to be, and that is capping out. So you're going to be deemed to have paid yourself the same amount as you got the loan.
Okay. What do sole proprietors need to prepare for forgiveness?
I think that the bank is going to just ask you for the Schedule C again. That was the basis for the loan. I think at this point, the bank lender's a little bit confused on it because it's not clear. When you go through the easy loan applications, what you end up doing is to say that my loan amount ended up being my cash compensation. That ends up being the same number. So that's what you say. And how are you going to prove that when that's based on an assumption? Don't know. But I would say, if I was a sole proprietor doing this, there's 24 weeks to do it. And I have a hard time seeing that you're not going to end up having money coming to you and say that, yes, this money came in and I took out money from my bank account. I think your bank account will reflect that. And I only see that the only thing they could ask for is bank account for a sole proprietor.
Okay, and then we have on the easy PPP forgiveness form, should we include the EIDL grant amount or just put in the grant number?
No, I think they're asking you for the amount, but however, again, don't deduct it from the calculated forgiveness amount. SBA will do that automatically. If you are asking for a forgiveness amount of $50,000 and you had a $10,000 grant, don't make that 40 yourself, because what will happen is that SBA will take that 10 again and make it 30. So on top of that application, they will ask you how much did you get and what's the loan number. You should say that, but in the calculations in the form, don't take that away. They're not asking you to, so don't do it. SBA will do it themselves or not. We don't really know what's going to happen. They're supposed to.
Okay. So then just to be clear, back to the previous question, just to be clear, if there is a net loss on the Schedule C since the business is new, then is there no PPP loan possible?
it depends on how new it is. If the business is after 215, yes, it's not possible. If it before, if there was a loss on Schedule C from last year, or if you had something this year that shows a profit on Schedule D type revenues and expenses, then you possibly could do that. You're supposed to be able to, and that depends on the loan, or I think it's difficult to try to get that through with a lender.
Okay. Then we have, Lois, it's the YouTube channel is Monmouth Score. If you search that on YouTube, but I'll put a link in here. The current webinar should be on within a few days. It just depends on how long it takes us to get them downloaded from Zoom and uploaded. And we're a little bit behind on that, but it will be on the webinar, on the YouTube channel. Then it's and it's also on our Facebook page because it's recorded live on our Facebook page, so you can go back in and replay it there too. So then another question is, my PPP was just approved. Do I stop submitting the weekly claim for unemployment and PUA, or do I claim PPP as income on the weekly claim?
I understand the question, and there have been different answers to that, and it's also dependent on what the person wants to do. Because here is, if you say that, yes, if I pay myself the same this year as last year, then I have an income that is corresponding to 2.5 months for the loan. So that's 10 weeks. So now I get to count 24 weeks as PPP, as forgiveness amount. So now it becomes a question of timing. And I think that you are eligible if you're not up and running and those kind of things. And it may be that for the first 10 weeks of the PPP loan that you may not be, but I think that is up to how you want to do it. I don't know that the states have taken a position on that issue. That's the last?
Yep, that's the last question.
Okay, and we're almost there.
Do you have more slides, Chris?
I only have this, so the question here, and now it pertains to 8 weeks or 24 weeks, which should we do? And that depends on your situation. If you do 8 weeks or any number in between 8 and 24 now, should you do it earlier than 24? And that depends on, have you reached the whole thing? Can you do your calculations? Go through and do them. And we're going to get that sheet out to you so you can do them. So you see, yes, I'm okay. I'm going to get my forgiveness. Then you may be good. Cut it off. Because then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do any payroll reports. And you get the loan off your books. And if you're a sole proprietor, and let's say that you're going to go and buy a house, this PPP loan shows up in your credit reports. So you do want to get it off as soon as you can. If you can, you get the number forgiven, then get it off. If not, if you need it 24 weeks, go to the 24 weeks. If you need that to do the full. If you were a retail establishment that just opened up, you may need a 24 weeks to get there. So, and again, there are some on Monmouth, on SCORE. The SCORE has checklists for different industries for opening up and all those kind of things. I would go and look there and see if your industry is there. They look pretty handy to me. That's it.
All right. So just last chance for anybody to put in any last minute questions. And while we just give you a second for that, I'll go through my my closing spiel. First, I need to apologize for my distraction there. I had a teenage boy drama happen just as I was just as the questions started coming in. So I am sorry.
Hey, you're lucky to have a teenage boy. Most of us are way beyond that.
I don't know about lucky. I have 3 of them, so I don't know if lucky's the right word, but yeah. And timing was impeccable. So anyway, I apologize for that to everybody. So just a reminder, there is going to be a new registration link coming out next for the call next week. I will attach it to what we send out after this webinar, just so that you guys all have it. And it's also going to be on our website, so just double check there, and it'll be on our Facebook page as well. Lois, Monmouth Score, facebook.com/Monmouth Score. That's our Facebook page. I'll put it in the chat as well before I end the meeting. So we're still continuing these calls 4 p.m. every Wednesday. Remember that SCORE is a free service that we offer to small businesses, free mentoring services, free webinar services, and in normal times, free seminar services as well. One question from Ivan quickly before we log off. Is the 24-week use for the PPP loan automatic, or do you need to ask for an extension?
It's automatic. You don't need to ask for an extension. It's automatic.
Okay. So that being said, Lois, I'll put that the Facebook page in the post email as well. Thank you everybody for joining. Bear with us next week if the registration doesn't work as smoothly as possible. It's going to be our first time in the new system that we have. So just know that, and I apologize if there's any confusion, and email monmouthscore@gmail.com if you have questions. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see everybody next week.
All right. Have a good week, folks.
Thanks, Chris.